When it comes to actually dressing for yourself, only invest in wear stuff that when you put it on, like Wade says with his lovely Hawaiian shirts, he feels good. He feels empowered. He feels like a superhero. He feels like himself. That's the most important thing. Don't wear stuff that makes you feel any less than you want to feel.
Welcome, everybody. I am beyond thrilled to have today a really good friend of mine. The fashion world knows him as Roberto Revilla. He is a superstar. I've been blessed to get to know him as, and call him Bobby, because that's what the people who get to know him and his quirks get to do. He is a tremendously talented tailor, entrepreneur. There's so much he brings to the table, and he's really opened my eyes about things. And our topic today in general is going to be about tailoring your clothes and your message, your look, that whole thing, your packaging, your branding, to attract ideal clients, because he's done that, I think, so well. And I'm excited to have him here. Thank you so much for joining us today, Bobby.
You're welcome, Wade. I feel like I'm a little bit dressed down, but then, knowing you in your Hawaiian shirts, I was trying to kind of balance things. So I hope I got the temperature just right.
You got it just right. I was thinking about one of the interviews I first had when I was wearing button downs, because that's my look for my insurance agency coaching clientele. And I was still kind of figuring out the 3-day weekend entrepreneur thing. And I came on an interview with Alex Sanfilippo, and he was on with a Hawaiian shirt and I was wearing the button down. I was like, whoa, no, I'm doing something wrong. And so, and he corrected me, and I literally have a wall like 10 feet from me that I've got like 2 or 3 or 4, like kind of like Mr. Rogers has his closet where he'd get his cardigans from. I've got my few different Hawaiian shirts. Then I always try to remember which short did I wear in which episode in the whole podcast. It's this whole OCD thing about, you don't wear 4 shirts in a row. And now I understand, teenage girls and all that stuff. But anyway, I'm really excited to have you here today, because one of the things that really has been so intriguing is Bobby had me on his podcast and had shared with me what the work I was doing, how much it impacted him. And that was huge, me receiving it from him, mainly because he is so talented. So it's one thing when somebody who you perceive as, okay, a nice person or whatnot says you're talented or it says you do good work. Like, okay, thank you. When you're a person that's receiving a compliment from a 20-plus year entrepreneur that's ridiculously successful, and he's like, yes, your work is making an impact, that's really huge. And what was really cool is we got to do 12 weeks of coaching program together, one that I run, and I learned so much from him in the process, and my game has been stepped up. And so I'm just so excited to have you here. But what I wanted to start out with, Bobby, is if you would start out with just a little bit, not so much your business, but the aha moment when it shifted, because you've had a couple aha moments. And we're going to go a little bit of your story of some of the things you've done that I think are just completely badass to demonstrate you're an entrepreneur. But maybe just share a little bit about yourself, and what was it that helped you realize that you were going to go from just being simply a tailor to the leader, the person you are today in business?
So, as you quite rightly alluded to, I'm a bespoke tailor, menswear designer. My company's Roberto Revilla London, based here in London, although we look after clients internationally, which is awesome. Actually, one of my clients in Florida just had his wedding, just shipped his stuff out, got the pictures back. He looked absolutely awesome. So yeah, global tailor now. And I have been doing this for 20 plus years now. So thanks for making me feel super ancient. But the aha moment, I mean, as my coach, you'll probably have to remind me of them. But, I think the aha moment came last year when I realized, and this was partly down to you, even before we met, because I've been a fan of your podcast since before we got connected through the Podmatch community and so on. When I realized that what I actually do is not sell clothes to my clients, I'm coaching them on a daily basis. It's just that my method of coaching, or the catalyst, I guess, is the clothing that I give to them. And the end result of what I do for them, which is the empowerment, the impact, how they feel, taking someone who may come to me being fairly insecure, and sending them back out an absolute superhero. That's what I do, and that was probably the biggest aha moment that I've had of the last few months or so. And it did propel us to have our best year ever in 2022, which, we sent our New Year's letter out to our clients, and so many of them have got in touch, and so many of them are shocked. They can't believe that a business like ours could be doing so well this close to coming out of a global pandemic, when I guess half of them thought there'd be no need for people to wear clothes anymore, strangely.
Yeah, I think the thing, and I would say was something that I think you and I discussed so much, was this idea of you helping people who were already making an impact. You and I really focused on that word impactors, and that's become a filter for you. And one of the things, though, that really I learned from you is I pride myself in being a substance guy. I guess if I were better looking, I'd pride myself in being a style guy. So I pride myself in being a substance guy. And in business, I've always done the thing where, okay, I'm going to get results with substance. And I've been, by many standards, successful. And yet I've watched people that either A, do substance and style, or B, just even do style alone. And sometimes the people who even do style alone will do, at least by financial terms, more successfully than me, which annoys the heck out of me. And yet, what was something that, and there was a shyness for me to really try to embrace that, to not have it be about whether or not I look like Brad Pitt or George Clooney, or can I be my best self? Can I be? And that's the piece that I think is so magical about what you're doing, is because we talked about this. Okay, is this just, looking good to be like, hey, I look sexy and you don't. I'm too sexy for you. It's talking with people who, if they step into their best self, can make such a huge impact in the world. And again, you work with people who do that. So share a little bit, if you would, about the people you serve, and then also what's the difference between some of the impactors that you work with when they're not stepping into their power, and how, what level of impact and prosperity they're operating at, versus when they're stepping into feeling comfortable, feeling confident, being able to deliver that speech or whatever it is in a way that inspires others, not just so they can make more money, but so they can make a bigger impact on the world.
So, as usual, as you know with me, I don't know if I'm going to answer your question by the time I finish, what I'm about to go into. But the types of people I work for, they're generally high net worth individuals, and they are either from an entrepreneurial background, so they're self-starters, they've built businesses and sold them, and then they're doing the same thing again and again. They know how to, they're wealth generators is probably the best way to describe them. So those people don't tend to dress for anybody else. If anything, people should be dressing to impress them. They dress for themselves. And my clients that are dressing for themselves, what they want is that confidence, that empowerment. They want people to, I'm just trying to think of examples of those same clients who I've taken on in the last year, and what they've told me, and what a lot of them have told me is that, look, I am successful. I'm enjoying life. I'm doing really, really well. I don't want to come over as being a complete, what's a polite word for the words that that I'm going to use?
Arse.
Like, arse.
Arse.
Yeah. But at the same time, they want people to see that they are successful, that they have made something of themselves, because that's really important to them. They've worked extremely hard to get to where they are, and they kind of want that reflected. So that's one side to it. Then I have my corporate clients. So for all intents and purposes, they are employees. But they're impactors within the firms that they're at. So they're, in insurance, or they're in law, or they're in finance. A lot of my long tenure clients I've looked after for nearly 20 years. When I first met them, they were in their late 20s, mid to late 20s. Now they're in their late 40s. They're on global boards of some of the biggest companies in the world. And I've been there every step of the way through their careers. Now I say it out loud, that's actually really cool. And for them, dress is and how they look has changed over time, because when they were younger, it was all about expressing and exuding competence and confidence to those above them. So when you're young, when you're a graduate, you're just starting out in your career, people don't know how capable you are. Unfortunately, one aspect of the human condition is that we do judge people on first appearance. It's how we treat anything. Whether you're, it's someone that might become your girlfriend or your boyfriend, or it's someone you're about to do business with, or it's a new car that you're going to buy. We judge just about everything instinctively on first impression by what we actually see. And in business, when you're younger and you're trying to make it and you're trying to get people to take you seriously, when you walk into a room, you need people to look at you and say, I trust that person. He or she looks like they've got their you-know-what together. I know that I can send them out with confidence to our clients and to conferences and in my place, when I can't make a certain meeting, etc. But then that evolves over time. So they get their first promotions and then they start to grow teams and so on. And then it becomes more about the example that they're setting to the people that are reporting into them, until eventually they get to a place where they're sitting high up in the tree, and then they're dressing more for themselves than they are. But the funny thing is you can talk to someone who's a 25-year-old who will tell me about insecurities and things they're not too confident about, and how they want me to try and either cover it up or enhance certain aspects of their personality, so that they look better. Or it's someone who's tenured, who's maybe in their 50s or 60s, but they still see themselves as introverted, and they still see themselves as not having much confidence. I was at an end of year party for a thing at the end of last year, and it was packed. It was wall to wall. I just couldn't hear anybody. I couldn't get into any conversations, but a lot of my clients were there. And the one thing that a few of them said when I complimented them on their outfits was, Bobby, you don't know how much confidence the clothing that you put me in gives me. And I was like, okay, wow. So that's, basically what I do in a nutshell.
Awesome. So tell me this. So there's something and from talking with you, because again, you and I have talked about this in different ways. And I didn't know I'm such a Yahoo. I didn't know what the word bespoke meant. I had to Google bespoke. You and I were talking the first time. You don't know. I was like, bespoke. I'm like, is he bespoke? I don't know. He had his finger in a wheel and in a tire.
Like the Kanye song.
Okay. I don't know that, so I'll have to look that one up. But so anyway, one of the things that I've told people is when I wear these sort of shirts, they'll be like, oh, I like your shirt. Like, well, it makes me happy. It doesn't make me feel sexy. It makes me feel happy. So when I'm doing an interview like this, and I'll, obviously, as we know, you look here to see the person, then you look down there and I can actually see your face. So that's still something we're kind of all getting used to as humans. It's kind of odd, but every once in a while I'll look down and I'll see me and I feel better. It energizes me. Or if I'm on different calls and, women wear makeup and people will do all sorts of different things. And I guess at some point there's some invisible line that people say, okay, you're going beyond enhancing, you're being fake. And I used to, be preoccupied with that. I'm not. I mean, for example, in the hair, I put in a few streaks versus I completely color my hair versus it's purple. Well, if it's purple, we know it's purple. So there's nothing fake about that. We might not like the purple. We might love the purple. But one of the things that I think is so interesting is no matter how successful most people get, they're still human beings. They still have their insecurities. And when you look at the idea of a uniform, whether it's in the military, whether it's in a school, the whole idea is we want to bring out your best. We know there's this range of where you could perform in, and we're trying to say, okay, look, let's bring out that upper end of that range. It's not necessarily, or it doesn't have to be about being fake or being shallow. It's like, no, this is what what I look like. This is when I feel my best. And as a coach, the coaching profession is based on the premise of simply removing obstacles. It's not about making somebody they're not. It's about saying you've got these obstacles, these blocks, these different things. And to me, when you have people that come up to you and say, wow, I feel so good in this, I just want to be really clear for the people listening, and just from having talked to you, it's not because, the clothes are awesome, but it's more than the clothes. It's how you've connected with them. It's what you've found out about them. It's what you've, in other words, as you've said, and this was the part you and I talked about, I really do believe you are an executive coach. You're a business coach. You're just doing it through one means. And of course, when you take somebody who's this impactful wealth generator, and then you help them be at the top of their game, it's like, I don't know, like Tiger Woods' golf coach. That person might not have taught Tiger to golf, but if that person helps him, be at the top of his game, that's such a huge difference. So what is it like when you're connecting with somebody, and what are they telling you? What are you pulling from them? How are you getting to that essence? Because I think this is goes beyond tailoring. What's that thing that you're listening for? What are you probing for to find out, okay, how can I best serve this person? What kind of questions you ask, and how do you know, other than the tailoring part, although I'm interested to know that too, but how do you know that you're connecting with somebody and how what you're going to send them is going to be spot on?
So now I have to kind of think about it. It's like, because I do it instinctively, and I always have done. That's what, my wife, God bless her, she always says is the best thing, that, I'm like water. Bruce Lee always said that you pour water into a container, it becomes a container. And that's how she likens me to, when I meet people, because I'm able to sort of adapt myself very, very quickly to the person, recognize their personality and so on, adjust my cadence to them. But, I love taking care of people. And, I usually know, I think we all know instinctively when we meet someone in the first few seconds, whether, like what the energy is like, and whether we're really going to connect with that person or not. It is, I really believe that's instinctive. And so, you take the example the other day, one of my new clients, a guy called George Lloyd, who is, I can say he's in the military, but I can't say any more than that, really. Because then it gets into kind of, like secret territory and stuff. But he is in the military. And so when you know that about, so taking that as an example, right, that there is like a hard stop. It's like, okay, before I've even met him, I'm thinking, how am I going to crack that egg? Because there's a lot I'm not going to be able to ask him. And
right, please don't tell me anything that you have to kill me. I want to know the story, but if there's anything you're going to tell me you have to kill me, just don't tell me, man. I'm good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, and good. Can you imagine all your audience are probably looking over their shoulder right now as well. But he came in, and literally from the first couple seconds, if I could have hugged him, I would have hugged him, because we just hit it off like straight away. And I think, a lot of that is down to my openness when I meet someone for the first time. And it's trying not to be like a lot of people in my industry, sadly, who are very stiff upper lip and very judgmental of people. And, and I've just never been like that at all, because you don't know someone's story. And to find someone's story out, you need to connect with them. So George and I, he came into the workroom. We just, it felt like I'd known him for ages, even though I didn't know him. And, I took him through and sat him down. And what I did with him, and what I do with just about anybody is I kind of just put the business to the side and the clothing to the side. I'm not interested in any of that. And I just start talking to them like you would if, you and I met for the first time in a coffee shop or something. I don't know what circumstances that would be appropriate, but anyway, and just, we just spent the first half an hour just kind of, I shared a little bit about, myself and my journey, talked about him and his career journey, and the problems that he struggled with clothing. And then we got talking about his family, and then what he does for a living. And then once we got into what he does for a living, because that I'm a huge James Bond fan, I'm into all that, Jack Reacher, and who's the American one? Jack Reacher's American. The other guy, Jack, the CIA guy. Anyway, Ryan. That's it. Patriot Games and all that stuff. Anyway, so I'm probably already talking too much, and I'm just looking outside my window to make sure there aren't any snipers about to kill me. But we really got into all of that, and I learned so much. It was so fascinating. And, so of that kind of hour meeting, probably about 10 minutes of it was measuring him and picking out whatever, because by the time we got to that, he trusted me anyway. So he kind of went with what I suggested, but I got to spend 85% of that meeting. So it's the old 80-20 rule, right? So roughly 80% was spent on getting to know and just hanging out together. And then the other 20% was basically, okay, well, this is what we're going to do now that I've gotten to know you. And he had a reunion for his Cambridge University alumni that weekend. And one of his buddies is his best friend. He's the best man at his wedding. I'm doing that guy's wedding. And I've got an appointment with another of their friends because he was so enthused and he was so excited and he was so stoked about his appointment with me. The guy, he's in the military. He's been used to having tailors before because they have to for their dress uniform and so on. But and so he said to his friends, I was not enthusiastic about going in, but coming out, I was on top of the world. And tomorrow I'll have another client out of that, and I'll take exactly the same approach with him. So I found out that he is like a world-class poker tournament player or something. So I'm already like so curious about all of that. But I think that's the key. If there's a lesson out of this, because I obviously talk too much, it's curiosity. I think it's curiosity, wanting to find out as much as I can about that person. And then that's where the trust comes in. Because the transaction, really pushing the transactional side of what I do, you do, etc. to the side is so key in building trust with someone that you meet for the first time. And I know then that in future, I know that I've got his trust. I know that he'll do whatever I advise him to do. But I also know that if ever I need some help, I know that he'll give it. Like, I only need to ask. But from that, just an hour invested, put the transaction to the side, genuinely want to get to know this person, and then you just get a wealth of information that you can then use to truly help them, rather than just giving them some cookie cutter solution, which is what a lot of people in all industries tend to do nowadays.
That's so awesome. I think about what you and I, the conversations we've had about filtering clients, and it seems to me that there are certain clients that you possibly can tell right away that they're simply not up for that getting to know you process. They just want a suit, man. That's it. When you look at your filtering, and we've talked about the idea of, whether they're, wealth generators or they're impactors or, maybe both or those sort of things. What's it been like for you to start filtering clients more? Because I know that's something you and I talked a lot about and you've been doing. And what are maybe some of even the fears you've had with that? Because I know, it is any entrepreneur. If you've, we have this existence where, when you're selling a lot of stuff, you have a lot of money and almost no time. And then you have times you have a lot of time and no money. And it's not always that, but that's kind of the whole, almost the bipolar nature of being an entrepreneur until you learn to manage your business, manage your finances, and know, okay, I can ride out a slow season or whatever it might be. But of course, no entrepreneur wants to lose business. Even when I'll tell people, hey, let's work less, the first thought is, okay, wait, what's it going to cost me? And so my minimum promise is, I can't say, oh, we're going to work 80% less and you're going to make 20% less and you're going to make 20% less. That's a garbage promise. I can't go anywhere with that because nobody wants that if you're an entrepreneur. Like, I don't want to lose ground. And even the idea of working 20% less and making the same, like, whoa, same money? Whoa, what about more money? What about more impact? So when you're doing this and you're filtering, how do you know, or maybe how would you advise somebody? So as you're starting to now mentor and bring on people, how would you advise people to filter? Because now in your case, we've talked about this idea of somebody who's an impactor, that making an impact in the world, that that when you're helping them, you're not just helping another moneymaker for moneymaker's sake, just make more money. You know that there's a greater cause coming out of this. If nothing, at the very least, the individual is growing and expanding. And again, when you have impactful wealth generators, then they're usually going to touch and reach other people in a positive way. What's that filtering like, and what's it been like to deal with the fear of who do you lose and how do you handle them? And then if you want, go ahead into a little bit of also even how you've done that with, with Queen. I love you, dude. You're like a, for people listening, this is so great. He's dealing with spies, and we'll probably see, we might have to I might ask you after, we'll probably just in case, get rid of the guy's name in the interview for the thing. And it's like, so now you've got to come up with spy suits that are actually stealth spy suits, so they can't look like James Bond, because I'm like, oh God, there's a spy. He just looks too good. He's on, he's on a Vespa, and there it is. How do you start filtering, and what's that process been like? Not just the mechanics of it, but what it's felt like for you, not just even as the fear as an entrepreneur. And see, by the way, this is why you have long answers, because I have long questions. The fear as an entrepreneur, but then also stepping into, yes, I'm worthy enough to say that, yes, there's certain people that I'm best to help. Not because I'm better than them, but I'm really equipped to best help certain people, and there's a certain amount of time, and there's a certain amount I can do. And others, no, it really is better if you just kind of go down the street.
Yeah. So some of this, there's a lot of talk about niching down, right? It's like the hot thing at the moment. All coaches are talking to their students about niching. And, you and I spent a lot of time on this last year. And I'm realizing now, having come into the new year, and January's been a little bit bumpy just because there's a few things going on in the UK at the moment, stopping people from moving around the country. And that obviously, if I can't see people in person, that has an impact. But anyway, what I have realized is, for me in my business, and I hope some people will be able to relate to this and maybe have a think about it as it pertains to their own situation. Sometimes you can't be scientific about it. Now, to go to your first point, where we as entrepreneurs, when we're building our business, we tend to just race around and we are just trying to grab whatever we can. It doesn't matter whether it's low value, low margin, high value. Obviously, high value, high margin is awesome, but mostly it tends not to be. We tend to be just running around for the scraps because we need cash flow. And it's very easy with, in my case, 20 years of hindsight, to say, you don't want to be doing that. You don't want to be taking everything, because you take something that in your gut is not the right thing to do. It's not the right project to take on. And what happens a few weeks down the line, you're into loss-making territory. You'd have been better off not taking it in the first place. It's very easy to say that 5, 10, 15 years down the line. But when you're actually in the situation of just feeling like you need to get cash in the bank, you're saying to people like me, no, you're talking absolute rubbish. I need to eat. I need to survive. There's no point eating if there's like a slow acting poison in the scraps that you're finding. I just came up with that one. I can tell you're impressed.
That's really good. I like that.
Yeah, you can have that one for free.
Thank you.
But you know why, right? I come out with these zingers. It's because my overactive imagination, right? So yeah, slow acting poison. Because it will only kill you down the line. I think my advice to people who are just starting out is really to take a deep breath. And don't just say yes straight away. I'm not saying you can't say yes at all, but just take a deep breath and just think through. And also don't be afraid of just charging what you're worth as well. I think today we're all dealing with inflation and all this other economic stuff that I don't really know about, because I deleted the news app from my phone because I don't need that stuff poisoning my brain first thing in the morning. And it's stuff that I can't control anyway, so why worry about it? But people are used to paying more, and they don't mind paying more if they're getting service, value, quality, and you are solving their problems. So I think having confidence in your pricing structure is very, very important as well. So that's the first thing. Sorry, what else did you ask me?
So I'd ask you about how you. Yeah, I know. Well, because you and I have talked so much, I've got so much that I want to share with people because there's so much gotten. So, the filtering. What has it been like
the niching,
for you for you to be okay with it? Because I know you and I talked a lot about this. About you being like, okay, I don't. Again, it's not even. I don't want to come across as an arse. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that person that's too good for people. And yet, there's certain people that you and I both know. You'll try to help them. And you're bathing a fish. It's just not going to happen. And so it really is, the opportunity cost is somewhere else. You could have been helping somebody, you'll never get to them. What's it been like, or how's it felt for you? How have you dealt with, whether you want to call it feeling worthy or feeling smart enough that it's a wise decision to not just charge more, but also filter out the people that are really, again, you're not better than them, but they're not the right match for you.
Yeah. So, I think if you take it black and white, it's very, very difficult, because that's what I tried to do when you first kind of introduced the concept to me. And part of that exercise was about sort of saying, who are the people that I'd want to be serving every single day? And the answer is, it's the 20% of my clients who bring 80% of our revenue and profit, because they happen to also be the most inspiring. There are a couple of Orises in there, but by and large, they are the most inspiring. They place a value on what I do. They let me do my job. All those wonderful things. I'm energized when I'm going to see them. And the other 80%, not so much. So I kind of took that as the sort of new yardstick and started segregating my client database that way. So it was like, oh, really excited to have him in the diary. That's someone that I love taking care of. I'm going to be giving him all my time and attention. And then, not someone that I'm really that keen on seeing, But that's where my assistant comes in. So I now have a full-time EA, Queen, who's awesome. And so here's the thing, right? What I realized coming into the new year is that your impact clients aren't necessarily the ones that spend the most money with you. And so you need to try and maintain good relationships with everyone. So I'm now going on a basis of energy that if I feel that spark with people, that I can have a conversation with them, that I'm not getting any of this, the economy is really bad, people probably don't need tailors like you anymore, etc., etc., or you've had your best year ever, you must be lying, because that's not possible. If they're people that are if they're cheerleaders, I want to know them. It doesn't matter whether they buy a couple shirts from me every once in a while. We can put systems in to help those people buy without impacting my time too much. But you see, I got a new client the other day. So Harley Street in London is the street where all the top surgeons in the country in the medical profession, whether they're plastic surgeons or dental or anything to do with medical stuff, it's the one street in London I've not been able to get into. Right, and I've been doing this for 20 years, and that street is right in the heart of my patch, right? It's like I used to door knock around there trying to get business when I first started. And I don't want to call him a not great client, but okay, so a low-level client, he's only ever done like a handful of stuff with me, and he got in touch out of the blue. In fact, actually, his girlfriend did, and she said, hey, I'm the assistant to Dr. So-and-so. You may have seen him. He's been on television, blah, blah, blah. And he is after a suit because it's his son's bar mitzvah coming up. And my boyfriend, Andy, who you've done some stuff for, recommended you. Like, done deal. I was going to walk into this guy's surgery and he's going to order from me, and I'm his tailor all of a sudden, and he's already talking because he's come from a referral from someone that he trusts. He's already on the way out the door. He hasn't even seen my clothes yet, but he's already saying to me, when you come in for the fitting, there are plenty of people in here that I can refer you to up and down the street. But that's from someone who, if I'd used the definition that I was going with last year when we were going through this coaching, the niching down kind of definition, the very harsh one, I would have dumped. Like, put his file on the barbecue. And then I wouldn't have had this opportunity. So you never know. The people that are spending the most money with you aren't necessarily, they're not worth any less. Sometimes they're worth even more because they can be your best connectors. So for me, niching down now, I realize means people that I have a really good relationship with, that are open, that are cheerleaders, that there is just that spark and that connection. And it doesn't matter whether they're spending tens of thousands of pounds a year or they just spend a few hundred every now and then. If there's that connection there and they get it, like they're part of the community, then I need to keep them in the game. Right? How I do that, I work that out with my assistant and through the newsletter or the podcast or whatever. And that's also part of finding out how they like to keep in touch with you. But yeah, you never know who your biggest connector is going to be. I've got clients who spend the most amount of money with us. Like, these are guys who got us through the pandemic just because they could. I'm so grateful to them. Will they ever refer me to anyone in their network? Maybe. But it's really hard, Wade. Getting a referral out of them. Do you know why? Because I'm their best kept secret. All their other rich mates don't know why they look so good, how they do it in so little time, how it doesn't matter if they're at their home in New York or their home in London or their home in Switzerland or their home in the Far East or whatever, that they just look just as good in all those locations, and yet they never travel around with anything. Because I'm there in the background replicating their closets all over the damn place. But will they refer me to anyone? No, they probably won't. Because they don't want their best friends knowing their secrets.
That's one of the toughest. That's one of the toughest things I learned in my software business. So I have a software business that helps people motivate their team members to sell more by rewarding them and whatnot. And I would have and I would just call this abundance minded. I had some of my clients that will tell their friends because they don't care if they make the top of the leaderboard and they really just want to help their friends. And then I have others where literally getting them in one area was, I almost wonder if they bad talked me. Like it was like the curse of death. Like, oh no, you're not going to hear wait. Because meanwhile, they're killing it. They're doing great. They'd always like testimonial. Yeah. Oh yeah. I'll get that to you. And you start wondering, oh, okay. Which is such a nice compliment. I can't do a whole heck of a lot with that other than make more money off of that. But I think you bring up just overall just such a huge point that if you've been married and you're still married after 5 years, whether you're a male or female, so this is not a female bashing thing, you've had to have humility. If you've been an entrepreneur for more than 5 to 10 years, you've been wrong multiple times if you're even paying attention, and you have to have humility. And so this is, I think, such a huge part, which I love about your personality, because you and I have talked about this, that even a lot of the clientele you're working with, you almost have to be, if you were strategic and a not very nice person and methodical and manipulative, you'd pretend to be you. You'd pretend to give a damn. You'd pretend to, and you'd also pretend to make sure that you didn't think you were better than them, because I would guess some of your clients can't handle that. And yet at the same time, what I think is so interesting is I really do think you have such a love for the art and a love of people in general that it does come across that that's genuine. And I think that's the piece that I'm learning more and more. You mentioned something that's so true. I've worked with impactors for so long, and yeah, sometimes impactors don't have a lot of money, or sometimes they're budgeting, or sometimes they're on their way up. But gosh, they're some of the best mouthpieces, and usually, especially if you've done something for them, or they haven't paid retail and they know it, or whatever it might be, or they were with you before you got famous, they still want to be part of helping you and sending people to you. And I think the thing that maybe at times I might not have told you on some of our coaching calls, but that I try to do is just, who do I want to spend my time with? It's just really that simple. Like, who are the people that are fun to be around? Obviously, I have to make money. It's not just a hobby. It's not just a social club. So there's still assuming the prerequisite that it's making money. But I think that's something that, as you and I have talked about guarding your time, what I've seen you use is a combination of a qualitative, quality of person, transaction, intentions, not so much are they a bad person, but what are their aspirations? Are they looking to impact people? And then somewhat of a quantity filter. Are they impacting people? Are they making a certain amount of money? And I think you can balance that. And if you wouldn't mind sharing how you've used those and how that's even evolved into you guarding your time, because that's another thing you and I have talked about. And you and I have also talked about that it can be very difficult to simultaneously have a financial explosion and decide you're going to cut your hours. It's not always that easy. And I've done this for years, and I'll have my moments where I'm like, oh, my goal was to work less hours, but they'll say, oh, but wait, my income's up 20% in a 1 month period. Okay, I'll ride that out for a little bit. What's been that balance for you of the quantity filter, the quality filter, and then who's really, not so much again, who's good enough for Bobby's time, but who do you feel like, yeah, you know what, I've been on the planet 20-something years. I make enough that I'm not starving, so I can afford to say no. What are your filters? And perhaps even more importantly, how has that shifted how you enjoy your business, and then these referrals, and then what business comes to you because you're now dealing with higher quality people?
So the realization that I'm a people pleaser was quite a profound one last year. Thank you, Wade. And I've recognized that it's not a switch that you can just flip. I'm always going to be that way. I always have been since I was a child. I tell the story of when I was 5 years old, my mum and dad had to call the police and they were searching for me. I was listed as a missing person. And they eventually found me where they'd left me in the first place. And so what it was that we went into, my mum was taking me into this big department store, and I saw someone hold the door open for somebody. So I held the door open for the person who came in behind me, but it's busy. It's a Saturday afternoon in the center of town. And so stream after, it's just like a constant stream of people coming in. So I'm just constantly I didn't know what else to do. I'm just holding the door open for them because I've seen someone else do it, and that's what you do because it's polite. I must have stood there holding the door open for 2 or 3 hours. My mum didn't know where I was, right? So you imagine I'm barely 4 foot tall or whatever. So everybody's just running around town trying to find this kid that's gone missing. And then eventually they circle back round to the department store, and I'm still there holding the door open. My mum's like, what the hell? Where the hell have you been? And I'm like, I haven't been anywhere, Mum. I've just been holding the door open. These people, they just won't stop. But you told me that that's what polite people do. And so, that probably exemplifies how I run my business, why we're so well known for customer service and so on. I had another tailor call me the other day trying to find out what the secret was to getting so many 5-star Google reviews. Well, just look after people and do your best by them. So I am a people pleaser, and I can't switch that off. And so rather than trying to fight against it, because that takes a lot of energy, what I've decided is just to accept it, but then to use the new tools and the new support system that I've built around me to help to kind of deal with that. So now I basically have Queen, my EA. She does most of my scheduling. And I also time block my diary. So what Queen doesn't have access to is the back end of our system where I basically block off things like, for example, I'm also the host of the Tailoring Talk Podcast. And if you want more Wade, definitely check out his episode there because he was awesome. And so my recording sessions are on Friday afternoons. Friday mornings are reserved for what I call on the business work. So that's usually whether it's, I'm going to networking functions or just meeting up with people that are impactors that I can network with, or VIP clients that are also in that kind of impact space where I can just go see them. They need to get some clothes, but mostly we're going to grab a coffee together, find out what's going on in each other's lives. And out of that, I'll kind of come away with some tips and, maybe referrals or an in somewhere that I didn't have before. So that's my Fridays protected. So So that's the thing you'll be really proud about. While you're playing volleyball, I've already had a whole bunch of networking meetings in the morning, and I'm starting to do podcast recordings. So that's that. Thursday afternoons are also reserved for a similar kind of thing. So I'm only seeing clients really Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday mornings, and then in the afternoons I've got time blocked, to actually do the work, to do the craft. One of my VIP clients, he said to me, "Bobby, can I ask you a question?" I was like, "Yeah." He said, "What have you got against afternoons?" And I said to him, "Martin, the clothes have got to get made at some point." And he was like, "Oh, okay, I get that." So that's kind of how I manage my time, and that's how I've used my assistant to help to protect all of that. So she's not kind of really prejudiced one way or another. If a client says to her, "Oh, can I see him on Friday afternoon?" She doesn't have access to that in the diary. She just sees he's got no Fridays available until like the day he dies. But I can offer you Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday mornings. And so that kind of takes out that, that whole kind of difficulty bit, where the client's grilling you and saying, "But Wade, why can't I see you on Friday morning?" And Wade's thinking, "Because I play volleyball on Friday morning, you arse." And the only people I allow to change my schedule, or I might do something on a Wednesday afternoon for them or a Friday morning, will be the VIP clients, who are the ones that, it's worth me spending 2 hours with them rather than just being on the phones or doing nonsense work. So it's kind of accepting who I am, but then making sure that I've got the support mechanisms around to make sure that I don't go completely off the rails.
Wow, there's a couple things I love there. There's a line, and I just saw the thing of this again in Ted Lasso, where one of the characters, she asked Ted, "Would you rather be a lion or a panda?" And they had this whole conversation. And then they asked Jamie Tart, there's just the really self-indulgent and absorbed person.
Yeah.
He goes, "Would you rather be a lion or a panda?" He says, "Why would I want to be anyone other than myself?" He's like, "I don't think you know how psychologically healthy that is." To me, you deciding that you're going to just say, "Yeah, look, I'm a people pleaser." Cool. How do I then operate within that confine or that it's not a limitation, because that's who I am, because so much of your superpower does come from that. Of course, that can go to an unhealthy place, obviously, but how can you leverage that? And then, like you said, build a team, have an executive assistant that is supporting that. I love your executive assistant's name is Queen. It's just so great that the Queen works for Bobby. It's just so awesome.
I remember when I first told you about we were interviewing people, right? And I said to you, like, her name's Queen. Like she's 95% got the job on that basis. But I get clients even today. It's like they'll say to me, "Hey, I spoke to your assistant. She seems really nice. Okay, fine, I get it. I need to deal with her for scheduling." "Bobby, is Queen really her name?" "Yeah. Queen by name, Queen by nature. You better believe it."
There was Prince. If you're gonna deal with it, I love that. And then the other thing that I think is so, just to me, cool about what you're doing is you're being open to being open to being wrong, but also not throwing out the baby with the bathwater, to be able to say, "Okay, I'm going to evolve this. It's going to evolve." Because I think that's one of the things, even as a coach, and why I think coaching has perhaps taken on more significance than outright consulting. Because consulting is when you say, "I'm right, do what I say." And coaching is kind of almost like the whole joke about psychology. Well, how do you feel? How did that make you feel? How did that make you feel? How did that make you feel? How's that working for you? But there's a sense of, it's more question-based. It's more, okay, you did this. Here's the generic idea to do. Yes, Bobby, start filtering your time. But as you saw too, some people will say, "Yes, I'm exactly the person you want to deal with, Wade, and it's Friday morning, and I'd love to see you to discuss something, and that's when I'm available." And most of the times the answer will be no. But then sometimes if there's a certain podcast I want to get on, they say, "Well, these are the days I interview." And so I think that flexibility to be open to work with people, to meet with people where they're at, I think is so huge. One of the things that I love about your time blocking, I mean, you and I discussed this, and I now forget, you and I've talked so much, I forget if it's been on the air or off the air, but that you walk your dogs and you take a walk with your wife every day for a couple hours and you block out that time. So, I mean, gosh, the time blocking in the sense of I'm worth this being, in fact, help people with that if you would. So I'm going to ask you to be the coach now. So talk to the average entrepreneur who's saying, but Bobby, you don't understand. Just like you said earlier, you're already successful. You can't. What is the person who won't time block? What are they missing out on? And how do their clients respond to them once they do time block? How did that change your client's perception of, oh, wait, you can say no to me? Oh my gosh, you must be more important. You must be more valuable. What would you advise a person who's struggling with that? And again, how did that shift for you?
So, I think people's relationship with their clients, again, I've talked about it, but you have a choice. Like, your relationship can be transactional purely, which means that you'll have those clients for a certain period of time, but then they'll just go find someone else because there's nothing really that differentiates you from anybody else that comes along. And the other thing that we have to remember is that, potentially in the same way as when you're in a marriage, that there are always people knocking on your door trying to pull you away. And, you don't want your clients to ever be tempted. And the way that reduces temptation for them to open the door to anybody else that's trying to muscle in on your relationship is to have a strong relationship with them. And if you go on that basis, then they're right with you on your journey. They understand your struggles. They understand that you've got other stuff going on in your life, that, you're not just sitting there twiddling your thumbs all day waiting for them to call you, and then you jump to attention and like, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, what can I do for you? Blah, blah, blah. They know that you've got other stuff going on. They know what you're trying to build. And if you can get them on that train with you, then it becomes a lot easier for you to to start to time block and protect certain times of day, or, take time off, take holidays and vacations and so on. I think October was probably a really good example of where, unbelievably, I didn't even realize it was happening at the time, but you were right with me. So, my wife had some health challenges. She was in and out of hospital. I had, I think probably a total of about 5 to 7 full working days that month for my clients. But I basically stayed disciplined, and, just kind of worked out my priorities, blocked things out in the diary, obviously blocked out hospital visits and that sort of thing in the diary as well. Made sure that I had time blocked out for exercise, etc., to look after myself, and also made sure that my coaching time with you was still protected. And somehow, only having 5 to 7 working days in October tends to be the longest month of the year. I had my best career year ever in 20 years, and it wasn't even really doing. I still don't even know how it happens. I need to go back to that month and really analyze it. But it was proof that I didn't need to be slaving away like a dog. Not my dogs, because I don't do any work. But I didn't need to be slaving away like a dog for 20 working days of the month. The other thing as well is that someone I interviewed on my podcast quite early on, I said if I do take time out to, whether it's to go cycling or to take my dogs out, which I do every single day for an hour, I block off 12:30 to 2 p.m. Nobody can get me or see me in those times every single day, Monday to Friday. But I feel guilty. And he said to me, you need to learn to give yourself grace. You need to learn to give yourself grace to do those things, because you need to look after yourself, because if you don't do that, none of the other stuff's going to happen. And I think that's very, very important as well. Again, I have no idea if I'm answering your question or not, but
no, that's right on, because I think, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but to go back to your original point, that there might be, sort of early entrepreneurs that are listening to this that are or even seasoned entrepreneurs that are just working like crazy every single day of their lives. Everything we do is not actually having that much of an impact. It's the old, again, it's boring and it's cliches, but it is the old 80-20 rule. 20% of what we do contributes to the majority of our results. If you just sit down, I mean, it's what I did when we were trying to work out, how we were going to bring an assistant on board. And I was originally like, I don't need one, I do everything, etc., etc. And then I put a spreadsheet together. You love your spreadsheets, Wade. I put a spreadsheet together and I basically listed every single job that I do in the business, which is every single one almost. And then I listed every single job that my wife does. My wife works with me. She's an accountant. She's our finance director. So she does everything to do with that stuff. And then we drew up a couple of columns, and one was, I have to keep doing this. Nobody else can do this job. And then another column was, can this be automated? And then the third column was, can this be delegated to someone like a VA or an in-person assistant? Out of, I think I had somewhere close to 50 tasks that I do in the business every single day. I was left with 4 that I have to do. I think there were about half a dozen to a dozen that could be automated, and the rest could all be delegated. So that, to answer your question, would be my tip for anybody listening that's thinking, yeah, whatever. By the way, I'm not perfect. God knows, and my coach knows that, and my wife knows that I'm far from perfect. I have not got any of this down yet. Pat, it's still a work in progress. But I try to get better each day, each week, each month. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, this guy's, blah, 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 he's so far ahead. And so, no, I'm really, really not. I'm literally feel like I'm at the beginning every single day. But my tip for you, as I would if I could go back 20 years and talk to myself 20 years ago when I first started out, write down every single thing that you do, put a value against it as well, and then do your, can I delegate it? Do I have to do it? Etc., etc. And once you do that and you look at the list of things then outside of delegating, outside of automation that you have to do, you'll find it's not as much as what you're actually doing now. And then hopefully then that will start to free up chunks of your diary to then go and do the things that maybe you love to do and you need to do. You need to have balance. You can't just be on the throttle all the time. You've got to get out of the car sometimes, and you've got to stop, and you've got to breathe fresh air, and you've got to look at the scenery, and you've just got to go and do some other stuff.
Wow. There's so much, and I encourage people to listen to this interview again. If you're listening, you're now coming to the end of it, listen to it again. There's so many different things that I've seen you do. You and I have talked about basically probably 3 to 5 of the most important core concepts in all coaching programs of executive coaching. And they get talked about different ways. And there'll be all these fancy models of how you do them. And I find what people most struggle with is the actual, just the real life execution. Like what actually happens? Yeah, okay, wait, I get 80-20. I get, well, what does it look like? Or when I do that, what's going to happen? And yes, some people are going to think that that's awesome. You're focusing on your best things and you're creating your best business. You're living your best lives. And some of you are going to think, what a jackass. I don't want to do the business with this person. And as you and I have discussed, you can decide, do you have somebody else in your company who can help that person? Or do you just, let that person walk? Or shoot, a lot of the clients just won't even respond. And they'll just like, sometimes the client, you're like, I think I want to filter them out. And they don't even respond. It's like somebody you wanted to have a fight with. And you're like, I'm going to tell them off. And they don't say anything. As you get older, you come to realize, you know what? Why don't I just let that lie a little bit? Because the next thing, 6 months later, oh, wait, just so you know, I was in Timbuktu for 6 months. That's why I didn't respond to your email. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. How do I help you grow your, so there's just all these different things. And yet what I've been grateful to be part of the journey with you, as a host, as a guest, as a coach, as a peer, is there's just this sense, I think, of joy and optimism and willingness to keep doing the work that I think you bring. And if someone were to take, all the things, they might say, well, Bobby could have said it in less words. Who cares? Then listen to the words again. We have to listen to stuff of long-winded people. And I don't think you're long-winded. I think you're explaining the nuances, because it's, again, it's those pieces that I think people miss, and that can, and I'm not saying coaches do this, but some coaches do this, that they keep it so technical that it becomes the doctor-patient model, where I'm the doctor, you're stupid, and you just need to listen to what I do and shut up and do what I say. That will get you to keep paying me lots of money, versus more of the, the practitioner and the client, where you're more like, yeah, I know some things you don't, you know some things I don't, because I'm a doctor, you're an accountant, you can help me with my accounting, and vice versa. But I just think there's something there's a vibe and there's an energy you bring to it. And I'm grateful to be part of your world. I'm grateful to have these interviews with us. And in case you all are listening, I am, without any sort of, polish, pulling the interview towards a slight close, because Bobby and I could talk for another 3 hours and there'd be no stop to this.
We could do the Le Mans of podcasts and just keep going for like 24 hours.
Exactly. But so what would then, and I'll ask you, and I'm going to pull back though before we're done, because this is, again, I've learned so much for you about the tailoring piece, the looking, again, you do bespoke tailoring, which is helping, find that right match for that person that speaks about who they are. What would you say to the person? Because this is very important. There's some people that are listening right now and saying, I want Bobby and I want him to do my stuff. And there's somebody else saying, well, gosh, I'm not at the stage where I can afford someone like Bobby. How can somebody get started, just even in their look, their dress? What should they be looking for in their clothes, whether they're off the rack, or whatever it might be? How can somebody know when they're starting to dress in a way that feels good to them, not based on TikTok videos, not based on what's trending? How can somebody find that so that they can start being simultaneously authentically themselves, but then also attracting that client? So not just randomly, somebody would say, I like wearing Hawaiian shirts, but like, okay, you're an accountant for big 6 firms. That might not be the look. That might make you feel great, but then the intersection of that would then attract the ideal client. What would you tell that person?
Well, firstly, I want to say you're a really good example, because, you're wearing Hawaiian shirts, but they're always beautifully pressed, and you just look great, right? I know that there's more to you than some insurance person if you were coming to me from the insurance industry. So I wouldn't mind. So I'm trying to talk more to people about what I call considered dressing, which means you don't have to wear a suit if you don't want to, if that's not you, it's not how you feel. Particularly younger people now, this is coming up more and more, that they see the suit as a uniform. And this is both genders, they want to be able to express themselves and so on, but they kind of still haven't figured that quite out, but they know that is not it, and so they don't want to be, conforming, but, at least look like you thought about what you put on before you left the house, in terms of what that is and how you kind of start that journey to kind of discover what you're going to be comfortable in, what is going to, portray to the world, what you want to portray to the world. Take advice, first of all. So, if you're listening to this, you've already got a head start, because you can contact me, just search Roberto Revilla, and then you can contact me via LinkedIn, or you can find me everywhere, but ask me questions. You don't have to be my customer to get advice. I'll be more than happy to help. And we've just started a YouTube channel. I took the dust covers off that a couple of weeks ago, and we're starting to put shorts and those long form videos. I'm learning all about it. So this is the whole other thing that is another time block that's got to go in my diary. But just get as much help as you can. So whether it's someone someone like me, or you Google stuff and you read stuff on the internet, but just try and educate yourself as much as possible. I'm not answering this very well.
I want to pull on something there real quick, though, because the way I explained it to my kids, and maybe this might help, is I've always told them the difference between sloppy versus it might not be the right clothes. Like we talk about this sometimes, even about going to church, because different people, depend where you come from, your culture, this. And so they would sometimes say, my kids are like, well, and we don't always go to church, but when we go to church, I'll wear a button down, I'll wear long pants. That's how I was raised. And a lot of their generation wore shorts. I'll say, look, okay. And I had to kind of get used to that, but I'm like, here's the main thing. to me, you dress in a way that demonstrates still respect. So it's not sloppy. It's not haphazard. It's not thrown together, because you can look sloppy in a suit and you can look together. So is it something even more of that? Because like you said, you want to be yourself, but you don't want to disrespect the client and say, well, yeah, I don't give a darn about you, because that's not the message you're looking to convey. Is it somewhere in that neighborhood?
You know what? It's really complex, which is why it's such a great time for people like me at the moment, because we've got so many people that we can help. But it's never been more complex than it is right now. So let me try and give a short answer. But no answer I could give would. There's no silver bullet to this. Okay. So when it comes to dressing, respect is definitely one thing. So be respectful of your audience. And, if you're going into a business situation and you don't know how people in the insurance industry dress, I can tell you over here, they're very traditional. You don't know how people in finance dress, whatever it is that you're doing, builders, whatever, pick up the phone. Speak to whoever picks up the phone, explain that you're going to their company for the first time for a meeting and you want to be respectful of the way that they dress, their dress codes and so on. Would they mind just sharing with you, how do the people that you're going to be meeting with, how do they show up? Just get some intel. Those people spend so much time as gatekeepers trying to stop salespeople and so on from, getting through to important people and so on. You ring up and you ask them, can you just help me? I just want to understand your dress code over there because I've got a meeting with your company and I don't want to get it wrong. Like, you'll have just made their day, because just imagine how exciting that is. So be clever, be smart, be cute about it, get as much information as you can. And then when it comes to actually dressing for yourself, only invest in wear stuff that when you put it on, like Wade says with his lovely Hawaiian shirts, he feels good. He feels empowered. He feels like a superhero. He feels like himself. That's the most important thing. Don't wear stuff that makes you feel any less than you want to feel. So for me, it's like, I know... so I'm going through the process of curating my wardrobe at the moment and getting rid of stuff that just really should not be in there. And I know that when I'm on top of my game and I'm in full, height of my powers, Avengers mode, it's when I'm dressing for networking events or I'm going to see a new, real high profile client, because I know, I'll walk down a street, every head is going to turn. And so... the way that I'm creating my wardrobe now is if one of those people were knocking up my door on a Saturday just to hang out, would I wear this in front of them? And if the answer's no, then it's got to go. That's just for me. I mean, image is really important in my business.
Well, but and you mentioned something that's important though, the people you want to connect with, because usually, and maybe this doesn't hold, but if you're just, okay, I'll go with a stereotype. If you're a grunge rocker that hates the system, you're probably not looking for a corporate accounting gig. So it's not like this is asking you to change who you are. But I was just gonna tell you, I hope you video that. That has to be an episode on your YouTube channel. You cleaning your wardrobe. Oh my God. That's, I wish I could be there for that. That's going to be, that you should maybe make a Zoom call. I don't know, have people vote, or not vote in the sense of that you listen to their votes, but almost release little clips where you're okay, what did you think? Should Bobby have kept this or not? Why? And then
that's a really good idea.
Oh, I'm looking forward to seeing this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Vote now, people. I'm not going to pay any attention to you, but which one should I get rid of?
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Bobby. And one of the things I think you demonstrate just at the very end. So just so you all know, Bobby is at a stage financially that he doesn't have to talk to people, that he doesn't have to say, oh, just reach out to me and I'll talk to you. He chooses to do that. And maybe in another episode, we'll talk about that whole thing of, can you help the entire world, or do you actually help less people and sometimes go deeper? And I just think there's so much awesome what you've done. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us today, Bobby. Any other last thoughts you'd like to share with people before we finish?
No, I mean, like Wade said, I'm definitely not at the financial level where, I can help the entire world, but I'm trying to find ways to do it. And, things like the podcast, so Tailoring Talk, and my YouTube channel, which is just at Roberto Revilla. Haven't thought of a fancy name for it, but maybe it doesn't need one. But creating content, I'm finding, is something that I really love to do. So I make time for it. It doesn't make me any money, actually. In fact, it costs me money in hosting fees and stuff. But it's another way for me to help more people, because I can reach, like, we posted a video this morning, like at lunchtime. Like, it took us 15 seconds to film in the workroom, but it was like a lot of people struggle with, like when you go shopping for off the rack clothes and like you think you're like a 42 regular and a 36 waist, but something's not quite making sense. So yeah, we filmed a little short, and it basically got like 2,000 views in the first hour. It was crazy, which to some people listening that are proper YouTubers and stuff are thinking that's rubbish. But for me, that's solid. Like, I'm brand new in this. That was so awesome. So creating content is something new that I found that I'm really passionate about, because I've realized that I cannot save the entire world on my own. But if I can create content that helps people, I can help a lot of people in one go. So reach out to me, and if there's anything I can do, I can create to help sort of coach you through clothing, then I would love to do that. And thank you, Wade, for having me on. It's been an absolute honor. I've been such a fan of the 3-Day Weekend Entrepreneur podcast for so long. When you and I first connected, it was like they say you should never meet your heroes, but it literally was. You are my hero. You give so much of yourself. I don't think you take enough credit for the amazing work that you do, and you're a wonderful coach. And everything you hear about Wade is the truth. He is, he's awesome. So yeah, you're probably going to edit that out. But yeah, thank you so much.
I will not edit that. I've learned that much.
You.
I will not.
And I appreciate your audience. If they're still here, I appreciate them, putting up with my very long-winded answers to your long-winded questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And yeah, hey, the people that keep coming back are the ones that want this sort of stuff. And again, I'm just very grateful for you for helping me remember at times, as you know, as a content creator, sometimes you get these dips where you're like, okay, is it worth it? Am I reaching people? And the stats help, but after a while, numbers don't do things for you. Comments, not so much from an endorphin standpoint, but just like a human being saying yes. Because sometimes you even wonder, is the algorithm wrong? I'm not seeing any sales coming. It says I have all these downloads or whatever it might be. So thank you for that. And for those of y'all who are listening, thank you so much for what you're doing. Definitely check out Bobby's podcast. He has great stuff going on his side. And as always, look forward to helping you all impact more people and make more money in less time, doing what you do best so you can fully enjoy your family, your friends, and your life. Thanks for listening.